I'm Jamie Reichschlager, doula, childbirth educator, and mom of 3, including twin babies. Thank you for being here as we explore the power of healing through childbirth, delve into the options, receive wisdom from guest experts, and hear inspiring stories that pave the way for healing and wholeness through pregnancy, birth, and beyond. Whether the journey is smooth sailing or filled with unexpected challenges, this is a supportive space for birth workers and individuals navigating their childbearing season of life. Together, let's embark on a journey toward empowerment, resilience, and triumph. Our babies, babies, babies will thank us. Today I am super excited because we have Dr. Sadey on. Welcome, Dr. Sadey.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you.
I've known you for a minute, for a while.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
I'm so happy to be in your space, in your sphere. Dr. Sadey is a fantastic chiropractor, and so as a chiropractor specializing in prenatal care, Dr. Sadey is passionate about helping other moms experience an empowered and informed pregnancy and birth. Her own journey into motherhood, guided by the transformative births of her 2 boys and the unwavering support of her husband, not only shaped who she is, but also shaped her approach to caring for women, babies, and full families within her office. So I love that so much. And today I would love to chat with you about your journey into chiropractic, the role that it has played in, obviously for your community, it's huge, but then also for yourself, like what role chiropractic has played. And then we'll get into your birth stories.
I love it. I'm so excited for this. And also, right back at you. I'm so grateful for this opportunity, but also just to know you. You are just a light. And I also love what you are doing with this podcast. So just needed to start with that.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. So how did you get started into chiropractic work?
Oh my gosh. Good question. I'm going to make this as brief as I can because I could make it like a 20-minute intro.
Yeah.
So growing up, my oldest sister had a lot of medical issues. So I was just really attracted to medicine as a whole. I loved the whole like cause and effect. Like, oh my gosh, you can figure out why something's happening. You can do something about it. That's cool, right? But I was only ever like zoomed in on modern medicine, and that's all I knew because that's what she needed growing up. And so I was like, I just had my mind, literally since I was 3 years old, I wanted to be a doctor, and never wavered from that. And I thought I'd do pediatrics or maybe be an OB or even like a neurologist. So it's kind of funny now that I am a nervous system centered chiropractor that focuses on kids and babies and moms. So it's like, I did it just in a non-conventional way. So I just had my eyes on the prize of medical school and going that route. And it was actually in my high school, I think it was my senior year, that I just did a ton of shadowing. And I was also a nurse or a youth apprentice, CNA. And so I just had ins at the hospitals and all the places. So I was shadowing all these doctors. And one that I shadowed was a family physician. He was also a family friend. And he pulled me on the side and he just said to me, like, Sadie, medicine is just politics and paperwork, and I would really love if you would look into some other avenues within the medical community. And I was like, wow. What do you mean? Like, truly, I mean, I credit Dr. Mike for my, everything, because I was just down this rabbit hole and really had the blinders on. I didn't even know there were alternative forms of medicine. I didn't even know that there was an entire slew of Eastern medicine that, has such an incredible pull in the world and can help heal in such an incredible way. And I just didn't know that. So he just gave me some people to go shadow. One of them was a chiropractor. And I walked in and I was like, why is everybody so happy? Right? Like, everybody's so happy. You don't go to your chiropractor and leave upset. Really. Like, you might come right, with a colicky baby or with sciatic pain or a kiddo with ear infections, but you leave feeling hopeful and you feel like, okay, I can, we're going to do something about this. And I just noticed that with every patient, it was just everybody was happy and hopeful. and really loved their chiropractor. And I went to shadow down at chiropractic school my freshman year of undergrad at St. Norbert, and the rest is history. I just like fell in love with chiropractic. But it wasn't until I graduated and did my internship down in Illinois that I knew that chiropractic could also include specialties within pediatric care, within prenatal care, and really supporting moms and kids through that journey. So
yeah. So did you decide that, excuse me, did you decide that the prenatal piece of it, like when did that enter? Obviously you were introduced to that piece, but when did you start that work and really focusing on that? Because that's a lot of your practice right now is the kiddos. Yeah.
Yep. So I should take it back that through chiropractic school, I knew that there was pediatric specialties. I just didn't really, I don't know, in chiropractic school, you do have your blinders on because you're just trying to get through the day-to-day. And so I did like Webster certification classes, not in chiropractic school, but I would go to, tons of different offices in shadow. I did seminars and things like that to to open my mind to pediatrics. But once I interned down in Illinois, and that was like the last 6 months of school for me, that office that I interned at and then eventually worked at for 4 years, that was all they did was like way heavier on the pediatrics than the prenatal side. But one of the doctors in particular was a prenatal doc, and that was his specialty and what he loved so much. So it was at that office, so that's like, gosh, almost 10 years ago, that I really started to dive into that. And once I was graduated and licensed as a chiropractor, that's when I started to seek specialties, right? Add letters behind my name and certifications and things like that to grow my education and knowledge, because those aren't things you get in chiropractic school. You have to opt for them, right? Kind of like becoming a specialty medical doctor. You have to become a specialty chiropractor. Any chiropractor could say, hey, yeah, I can adjust your baby. I can adjust your pregnant belly. But it takes a lot of specialty and a lot of training to know what the heck you're doing and to do it well. So it's been over 10 years now that I have been, just kidding. It's just a little shy of 10 years that I've been practicing, and those entire 10 years, I've just been diving deeper and deeper into ways that I can continue to support moms and babies. So yeah.
That's incredible. I love that so much. And to your point, like, you don't want to go to, if you're pregnant, you don't want to go to just anyone and be like, oh yeah, you can adjust. Like, no, you want the best person who knows what they're doing to be touching you.
100%.
Yeah. So we're lucky. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, it's very frequent that we'll get patients, and this is like truly no knock to any other chiropractor, because that's the coolest thing about chiropractic is it's like there's over 200 different techniques. You could go into one chiropractic office and get a completely different experience than the block over. But it's really cool to hear like that, a mom will come in and be like, I have gotten adjusted in the past being pregnant, or I have even gotten adjusted in this pregnancy. And it's so different, the approach that you guys take. And it's very obvious the specialty and training that you have in this realm. And that's that's obviously great to hear. Because we work hard to keep ourselves, in the know on all of the things, taking care of them.
Right. So, okay, I want to shift just a little bit because, so this whole podcast is not about the benefits of chiropractic. And I would imagine that the vast majority of my audience knows about the benefits of chiropractic, especially in pregnancy and for babies and for moms and families in general. But if you could summarize the benefits, just in case there's somebody new listening or somebody who is not that familiar with chiropractic in pregnancy specifically, what would you say are maybe the top few benefits or the ones that you see the biggest shifts in for moms who are carrying babies who come in and start receiving your care?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I always put them into like 3 categories. There's physical, there's mechanical, and there's emotional. So physical, I'm going to say, yeah, obviously pregnancy, your body changes faster in 9 months than it ever will again in its life or in your lifespan, right? And so that comes along with a lot of physical and obvious hormonal changes. And so a lot of women will come in with sciatica, or they'll come in with round ligament pain, or even headaches, migraines, carpal tunnel, all of the things that come along with a very quickly changing body, especially with the introduction of that relaxin hormone, right? Once everything kind of goes loosey-goosey and you don't have that support and stability through your pelvis anymore, lots of mamas will come in with pain. And so physically, chiropractic offers just a really great alternative way to help with pain control, right? Help with that low back pain, help with that sciatica, help with that pubic bone pain. And that is obviously such a great component of things. Probably my favorite benefit of chiropractic and prenatal care is the mechanical component of making sure that, and I say mechanical, but I only say that because that makes the most sense in my brain, but allowing for baby to have the most space within your uterus to be in an optimal position for birth. I always use the analogy of like a hot air balloon. I actually learned this from Emily Jacobson. Shout out, Emily, if you're listening. But, you think of a hot air balloon and all of the ropes that wrap around that hot air balloon. And if you want the hot air balloon to turn, you're going to tug on a rope so it turns. It's the same conversation of the round ligaments wrapped around the uterus and tugging and anchoring down into the abdomen. If those round ligaments are tight or taut, they're also going to tilt that entire uterus and all of the structures that come along with it. So if that uterus is tilted or torqued in any way, baby is not going to be able to get into a super optimal position, right? And they might do it, but it's going to be harder. And so then we can lead to different malformations in terms of position, or malpositions, I should say, right? Breech, frank breech, transverse, all of these things that are just not the most ideal, or even sunny side up, right? Baby might be head down, but maybe baby is not in the most ideal birth position. So chiropractic, especially through working through those round ligaments, allows for that hot air balloon or that uterus to be as wide and open as possible. And really making sure that baby can engage and be in a head down position. Those benefits obviously lead to decreased labor times, less intervention, and that birth intervention cascade that we can see sometimes. So those are some of my favorite benefits. And then the other one I would say is that emotional component, because chiropractic is really about the nervous system, at least here at Lux Life. And a nervous system that is in fight or flight mode is just not a nervous system that's going to be able to engage in a natural process of labor and delivery, right? And even pregnancy is, you're just going to be perceiving your life through a lens of stress. And so emotionally, we always hear so many moms like, I just feel lighter. I feel less anxious. I feel more at peace, less moody. I'm sleeping better. So those are some of my favorite benefits with chiropractic and pregnancy.
Amazing. And I think the other one I think that's not often talked about too is the sense of community and the sense of just being witnessed that's there, that maybe is not, and maybe OB offices, maybe your OB office does that for you, but a lot of them don't. So that sense of just community is huge, and it's actually trauma preventative as you lead up to birth, and then you see moms and babies and families after birth as well. So I just love everything that you're doing.
I love that. Thank you. That's such a great addition to that list for sure. And probably my favorite when you really look at it, because we built Lux Life on community. And it's one of the coolest things is when you have a mom that comes in and really is coming in for her sciatic pain, or coming in for, her carpal tunnel that all of a sudden started with pregnancy. And she's like, my friend told me to do chiropractic. But then you start to peel back the layers and you're like, oh, you're on an island and you don't have any support. And so frequently it does get to be that we're those people that are connecting, and we're telling them about doulas, and we're telling them about, like, do you actually want to have your baby in a hospital, or did somebody tell you that that's where you want to have your baby? Do you need a midwife? Do you need the support of, a lactation consultant? Like, connecting and truly creating community for these people is such a blessing. I'm like thankful that God put me in a place where I get to do that for people. Yes,
absolutely. So let's move into, you are thinking about your first baby, or yes. You are, so you get pregnant with your first baby. Do you already have a birth plan at that point? Like, you're so well connected and so well networked. Like, are you like, yep, this is what I'm doing? Or what did that journey look like? How did you make that decision for yourself about what your prenatal care would look like, your birth location, all that stuff?
Yeah. Great question. I think that because I am such a I know what I want kind of person, everybody thinks that when I got pregnant, I was like, oh, home birth, sweet, I know what I'm doing. I had a dream. I had a vision. I didn't know how at first to relay that dream or vision to reality. So I just went the way that I would think anybody would go, right? And let me back up and say that I was extremely educated. I had looked into everything. I obviously was taking care of moms for years before I had my first baby. But there was something about actually seeing those two pink lines, especially because I had had a loss a few months before I got pregnant with Isaiah, that I was just I went into oh shoot, okay, this is really happening, and I'm pregnant, and I'm gonna go to the doctor. So I went to my OB, my gynecologist, and she's a family physician that does that does OB work as well. And I went to her, and I kind of started down the traditional conventional route of a hospital birth, and that's kind of what I had been not thinking about in my brain, but was well, I'm here now, and this is what I'm going to do. And it was at my 16-week appointment that I went in. She found the heartbeat and was like, all right, you're good. Any questions? I mean, she was in the room for 45 seconds. And I left, and I was like, I actually do think I have questions, but she's not in here anymore for me to ask them. And what the crap am I doing? This is not what I want. And I think the biggest thing that made me, the biggest hold back for me, and I want every expecting mom to hear this, because I hear it every time on the table. So many moms will be like, I would love a home birth, but my husband, but my mom, but my sister. I was so worried that my husband was going to be absolutely not. Because we had talked about having babies, and we had talked about, honestly, a lot of how we wanted to raise our kids, but we really didn't have the conversations of this is how we want to birth them. This is how we want to bring them into the world. This is the type of prenatal care we want. I had those conversations with myself. I hadn't had those conversations with Adam. So after that 16-week appointment, I called Adam, my husband, and I was like, so I want a home birth. And I had been reading Ina May Gaskin's Guide to Childbirth, and I'm just sobbing through these birth stories, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I want. And I will say one other variable for me in terms of prolonging me from getting to the ultimate destination of a home birth was societal pressures. Just because I am an overweight person, I immediately was high risk in the hospital, and so I was scared to step into a different model and paradigm because of stigmas that society had put on me. And so when it was the next day after that 16-week appointment, I called Anne-Marie, my midwife, and I actually sent her a Facebook message, and she was like, let's get on a call. And me, her, and Adam got on a call, and that was the first question I asked her. I was like, so because I have a higher BMI, am I at risk? And she literally said to me, Sadie, weight is the worst variable you could possibly put in play with something like pregnancy, labor, and delivery. It's just not a good variable. She said, I've seen morbidly obese women have beautiful labors and deliveries, and I've seen, super underweight women have beautiful labors and deliveries, and also the opposite. She's like, that's just not the variable that we can put at play here. And that, for some reason, just gave me such a breath of fresh air, and I was like, okay, so this is something that I could actually do. She's like, there are so many other things that we can keep, and actually Anne-Marie never once made me weigh myself during my pregnancy. That's just a complete side note. But I think there are women that hear, maybe they do carry extra weight, or maybe they don't, and they just feel for some reason they have such a lack of confidence in their bodies and what they can do, or they feel like societally they've been told they can't do this, and that was me. And I was like, Anne-Marie just gave me this entire different space of no, that's just not true. And she really challenged what had become part of my paradigm of that was part of my belief system. And she just shattered that. And so once I had that call with Anne-Marie, and my husband was on it too, literally we were on the phone for her with her for an hour and a half. She answered all of our questions about safety, about risk, about all of those things. And it was amazing. I finally felt at peace and so in alignment with what I wanted, and being able to say, okay, I'm not just dreaming about the birth that I want, but I'm going to flip and have it. I'm going to have the birth I want. And that was everything changed at my 16-week appointment. So prenatally, I was doing all the things I wanted to do. I was getting adjusted, and I had been speaking with a lactation consultant, and all of that. But it was finally like everything shifted for me at that point, and I called a doula, and I got on Anne Marie's schedule with a midwife, and I was going full bore into a home birth. So that's a really long story, but that is truly how it went down for me. It was a very transformative moment at that 16-week appointment. Everything shifted, and I was like, this model of care is not for me. It might be for some people, and it might be for high-risk mamas. I'm so grateful that modern medicine is there when we need it. But for low-risk women, I wish, and I just pray, and I tell so many moms all the time, if you are a low-risk woman and you feel even a little bit intrigued in a birth center birth or a home birth or birthing in an unconventional way, like, look into it. Because all of the research shows that, honestly, you'll probably be more successful, in a space like that than in a hospital. So that's just a little side note.
I love it. And you're reinforcing a couple of things that we have said on the podcast before, and that is, it is so, so important to explore all your options. And to your point, if you are someone who feels safer inside of a hospital setting, then that is the place for you.
Yes.
If your own, all of the complex factors that are combining to create your reality, if within that your nervous system is more relaxed when you are in the hospital system, that is for you. If it's at home, that is for you. And it's like, it's so interesting how people don't interview a whole bunch of options, because if you don't feel at ease with them in an appointment, what do you think your birth is going to look like?
100%.
Not to mention the fact that that might not even be the person who's at your birth. But anyway, I digress. Mm-hmm. So that's the first thing. I don't remember the second thing, but it will come back to me.
I love it. It's all good.
Okay, so you are like, yes, this is for me. And then how does the rest of your pregnancy go?
Yeah. Literally a dream. Like, I am very blessed with, I had incredibly easy pregnancies, super comfortable pregnancies. I worked, full schedule. Adjusting people is not an unphysical job. It's a very physically demanding job. I adjusted, so especially my first pregnancy, I just felt incredible. And that's not to chance. I think that's something to remember, that pregnancy, like, I did so many things to ensure that I would have a comfortable pregnancy and ensure that I would be mentally and emotionally in a great space. I worked out 5 days a week, super light, nothing crazy, whether it was walks or just some strength training. I was really, really adamant on that. I was making sure I was eating whole organic foods. I was getting adjusted twice a week. I was doing meditations and having time with my Bible in the morning. Like, I was just very, very regimented. It's so funny because I feel like we're all almost like more regimented pregnant than we are not, because it's like, oh, I'm not just doing this for myself anymore. I'm like doing this for some kids. Like, I got a baby inside of me. I got to do this. So I was just very, very consistent, and I really dove into head on to making sure that I could have a healthy pregnancy and continue to work. That's obviously my livelihood. I own this business, and I was not in a space where I could stop working, so I had to not leave it up to chance and position myself in the best way possible to have a really successful and healthy, happy pregnancy, and I did. And then I stepped away from work at 38 weeks. It was so funny. My associate doctor, just a side note, the week that I was supposed to stop adjusting, she blew her back out. I was like, what happened? I don't know. So she had to step away for that whole week, and I adjusted double the people just right before having a baby. It was just like, what a way to go out. And then I literally was at home, and I sat and I waited and I curb walked and I did puzzles and I binge watched Netflix shows, and I'm like, okay, 40 weeks pass. I was not naive to the fact that I'm not having this baby at 40 weeks. I knew that. I was like, I'm not having this baby at 40 weeks. 41 weeks pass. I would come in and get adjusted, and a patient would be like, you're still here? You're still pregnant? I'm like, oh yeah, honestly, I could be pregnant for another month. I just did not feel any kind of discomfort. I was rocking and rolling. So long story
That's
short.
amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm going to interrupt you for
Yeah.
a second. I
Yeah.
hate doing that, but I
No,
need
that's
to
good.
go back to um, what did Adam say when you're like, I really want a home birth? Like, was he sold when you met with Anne Marie as well? Is that when it shifted, or what
Yes.
was that all like? I guess I shouldn't assume that he had reservations, but
Yeah.
um, I know a lot of men who have reservations when they haven't had a baby before.
Yes. Yes. So just a really quick background. You know this, obviously, Jamie, but listeners might not. Adam is from West Africa originally, and midwifery care is very common there. Like, that's his sister's a midwife. Like, that is what you deliver your babies with, midwife. But not in a home setting. So he was like all for the midwife thing. He's like, that's sweet. But he was like, when I said home birth, he was like, okay, all right. Never once though did he make me feel belittled or like that wasn't worth exploring. Every single time I talked about anything with birth, he was like, it's your body. I'm going to support you. And so he was like, I really need all of my questions answered with this midwife. And his biggest questions, as always, are, for most men, I think, are safety. And then he was like, well, how much is this going to cost? You know, he was just curious. So that, I don't think that would have ever swayed us one way or another, but he was just curious. He's like, you know, you think immediately, gosh, that could be a whole nother podcast. You think immediately that going into birthing outside of a hospital space is going to be astronomically more expensive, and that's just literally the opposite of the truth. So she answered that question real quick, and he was like, okay, that's not an issue. And then when she talked about safety and, you know, with low risk, having a low risk pregnancy, and, you know, if things are checking out well, that really the research supports home birth, he was like, okay. And then she also talked about her personal journey as a midwife and how aware she is of risk. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like Anne Marie is such an incredible, she's so incredibly honest, and she is so incredible at telling people the truth. And so she said, she kind of ran through, like, you know, I have had transfers. This is what that looks like. This is the most common reason that people would transfer, you know, and she just gave Adam a path forward of what that would look like. And it was from that phone call afterward that he was like, okay, if this is what you want to do. We did watch Why Not Home as well, and I think that gave him like one more thing of like, oh, okay, other people do this. Like, this is something that other people do. And then it's so funny because obviously Chris and Adam know each other. And like, you know, he's got a couple buddies at work that's like, wait, oh, they had a home birth. Interesting. Like, it's just so funny how he almost started, you know, God is amazing. I think he kind of put the right conversations in at the right times for him. And he realized that we were not on an island doing something that nobody does. It's just something that maybe isn't talked about as much. Yeah. And so he got on board really fast. And now you ask that man how he wants to bring a baby into the world, and he will say at home every single time under any circumstance. He's also the husband that will like look at my friends that are having babies and look at the dads and be like, so, you know, and kind of like just ask about like, oh, where are you having your baby? You know, we have friends that just had a baby at home, and he reached out and offered support to the husband. Like, he just truly, I think, he was apprehensive, but now that it's happened, he's like, I would never do it in a different way if given the, you know, if being blessed with a healthy pregnancy.
Yeah. So. Go Adam. We love Adam. And just for our listeners, for a little bit of context, so Chris is my husband, and so Dr. Sadey and I, our husbands work together, so there's that connection there. And you reminded me of what I was going to say before on the low risk conversation. So it was so interesting for me to learn that ACOG, the American College of OBGYN, doesn't actually have a definition for high risk. It's actually whatever the individual practitioner is comfortable with. And so it's really, really amazing then for you to have talked about the fact that Anne-Marie is really just self-aware in a lot of people say like scope of practice for midwifery when they're referring to low risk pregnancies. And I think that's still, a good applicable term for a lot of different conversations. But the fact that she is so self-aware and knows like it's not just scope of practice, it's the scope of her own comfort, and knowing and being very, very upfront about that. Because we do see midwives sometimes not be upfront with that with their clients, and that is not a good situation either. So yes, we love Adam, we love Anne-Marie. And so now you're waiting for your baby to come.
Yes. Oh my gosh. This is just so funny. I mean, I was not anxious at all. I was rocking and rolling. I was good. But Adam, I remember, I'm just sitting at home. One of the things I did so much of was puzzles. And so Adam had this this video camera, and he'd come rolling around the corner into the kitchen where I was doing puzzles, and he'd just video me doing puzzles and be like, "How you feeling?" He was interviewing me, and he has this really awesome video footage of me in these early, not even close to having our baby, but he's just so anxious and excited for that it might happen one day. So he comes out and videos me every day. So that was so fun. But yeah, I hit 42 weeks, and that was when Anne-Marie was like, okay, I want to make sure that you're still in a good spot. My due date had switched through my pregnancy. My cycles were a little irregular before I had gotten pregnant, and we just weren't positive on the date of conception. And so when I got my 20-week ultrasound, they were like, oh, we're going to switch your date back. And I think they moved me about a week. And so Anne-Marie and I both were just we weren't super, super solid on when I would actually be 43 weeks. So she was like, okay, we're getting closer. But at 42 weeks, she was like, I'm not feeling worried yet because my date was so skewed and so interesting and different. So she was like, okay, 42 weeks, you're not really feeling anything yet. We hadn't opted to get checked, nothing. I was just rolling. And then it was, I think it was 42 and 2 maybe that I came back down to her, and we were doing some homeopathics, we were doing some things like that. I was getting adjusted. I was doing all the stuff. And she was like, I feel we had made the decision together to be checked. And I was literally maybe half a pinky, and that was super annoying to me. And I wish nobody would ever get checked ever, because it's how annoying is this piece of information, right? I'm like, okay, I'm 2 weeks plus overdue, and I just don't even have this much of an opening in my cervix, So that was a little bit disheartening. But for whatever happened, I woke up at 42 and 4, and I had lost my mucus plug. I reached out to my doula, and she's like, okay, probably gonna just think soonish, maybe. Actually, I took a picture of it and sent it to her, and I was like, is this a mucus plug? I just shout out to the doulas in the world. Jamie, you guys are the real MVPs, because I don't know how people literally bring a baby into the world without a doula. It's insane that that's a reality for some women. So Emily was like, okay, well, what I would really recommend, she was like, obviously you lost your mucus plug. This could go a lot of different ways. She was like, you could have a baby today. You could have a baby in a week. Who knows? Your mucus plug can rebuild itself back up, and that's just not a great sign that labor's starting, but who knows, keep me posted. So she was like, have a big breakfast, because it was 6 a.m. And so me and Adam went to breakfast, and I had this massive omelet. I ate a nice high calorie, high protein, high fat breakfast, and we went home, and I had a couple little contractions here and there, but we literally binge watched a show all day long. And then it wasn't until, and I slept that night totally fine. It wasn't until the next day that I woke up and I was like, okay, I'm having some more consistent contractions. And that was probably around, 10 a.m. that those things started to kind of start a bit. And Emily came over and she ran me through the miles circuit to make sure baby was in a good position. And then she left, and me and Adam continued our show. And it was funny. He had my contraction app. He was the one that downloaded this app, and he would start to basically predict when my next contraction was coming. It was so funny. He'd be like, you're gonna have 1, 3, 2, no. And I would, because my contractions were that consistent. And they were maybe only every like 8 to 10 minutes at that point, but he was just having a blast, like, with that. And then as the day progressed, it was like early afternoon, and I was like, Emily should come back. Maybe it was around 2. And Adam decided he had to mow the lawn. So he just real quick went out and mowed the lawn.
I'm only laughing because Chris did the same thing with our first. That's the only reason I'm laughing. Continue.
Like, what is it? It cracks me up. And then when I had Cal, just a little foreshadow here, he, with my second baby, Adam had to snow blow the driveway when I was in the throes of labor. So I was like, you just need something every time. Both times you just need to get out and go do something for yourself. It cracked me up. So anyways, Emily came over and she was with me probably about 3 o'clock. My mom and sisters came about 5:30, and I remember at that point moving forward, I was like in another world. I was not really present. I was very I didn't know who was around me really. I was just very inward. I was very inside of myself. I remember the one request I had was a grilled cheese. But I was so pissed at myself when they gave me that grilled cheese, because I was like, why am I eating sprouted bread and raw cheese? I want a grilled cheese Kraft singles on a piece of white bread. Why am I so crunchy? Stop, I want a piece of shit grilled cheese, So I remember just throwing the grilled cheese away and be like, no, that's not doing it for me. And my contractions were every couple of minutes at this point, maybe every minute and a half, every 2 minutes. And Emily was like, okay, my midwife was not there yet, by the way. Anne-Marie was not there yet. She just, my labor progressed all of a sudden, kind of, it was it went from being fine to being holy crap, a baby's coming. And so Emily was like, I think we should go into water, but she didn't want me to go into the bath, into the tub, because she was a little concerned that Anne-Marie would want me to maybe check me when she got there. So she was like, let's just go in the shower. Go in the shower. I remember screaming very loud, banging on the shower. I was like, this is primal, Sadie. This is I'm very external. I am, thrashing around. I remember yelling at Emily that the baby was going to come out of my butthole because I had so much rectal pressure. Mm-hmm. So, of course, what happened next was my water broke. And so my water broke in the shower. And she moved me to the bed. And this is where birth for me, and what I love so much about sharing my birth story, is this part with Isaiah. Because, I learned about orgasmic birth. I did not have orgasmic birth, by the way. But I learned and read so much about women having beautiful birth experiences. It wasn't this horrible, not every birth is this extremely 100 out of 10 miserable pain situation. And when I explained my birth story to people, the last 30 minutes before Isaiah came into the world, maybe hour, was complete euphoria. I say it all the time. I was as close to heaven as I will be on this side of earth. That is how I felt the last half an hour before I brought Isaiah into this world. I was on my side, and my mom was in front of me rubbing my leg, and Adam was behind me with a washcloth on my forehead, and I felt my fan blowing on me. I smelled my essential oils. I used bergamot and lime. When I smell bergamot, I go back to my birth. I had my birth playlist on. I felt no pain. I was somewhere in La La Land. I was talking to the angels. I was so at peace. I was so comfortable, and I was so ready. It's like I went somewhere to get Isaiah and bring him back with me. And I always get emotional when I talk about that, because it was just the most beautiful moment, and women don't think that that's possible, and he came, Anne-Marie walked in the door. She rubbed my leg and said, "I'm here, sweetie." And it was so funny. One quick little thing that I do remember, at this point, Cynthia had also come, and so 2 doulas, and Cynthia was training to be a midwife. And at this point, Emily was behind me, just doing some pressures on my ischial tuberosities, and Cynthia was in front next to my mom, and all of a sudden the 2 of them switched. And I remember thinking in my brain, like, maybe that means this baby's coming because Emily wouldn't probably switch otherwise, you know? They were very, very incognito about it. But, like, looking back, I'm like, that's probably what was happening then. And so I remember it being, literally, it was like nothing. All of a sudden, his head was out. And Anne Marie was like, dude, he's got so much hair. Do you want to feel? And I felt. And I had absolutely did not have any urge to push. My body, for sure, I had the uterine expulsion reflex where my uterus pushed him out. And so his head was out, and all of a sudden his body was out, and he was born. And it was just the craziest, coolest thing. And we didn't know what he was, and so they held him up, and Adam was able to say it's a boy, and my sister was there for pictures, and I still have that picture. I will hang it and explode it and put it on top of our bed at some point because it is the most raw, incredible feeling. Adam is sobbing. I'm sobbing. Isaiah's on my chest. We figured out he's a boy. And it was just, Jamie, it was magical. That birth was magical. Yeah.
Well, I'm teary-eyed.
It is. It's just one of those things, like, birth can be that. You know, we're so conditioned to be so scared of it.
Yeah.
So.
And it's all of it. I think it's really important for our listeners to hear, especially if they've never given birth before, that it can be all of it. It's that peaceful euphoria, and you are, you know, amongst like heavenly beings, and you were thrashing around, very vocal. Like, it's all of it. It's intense in the most expansive way that anything can be intense. So I think you described that beautifully. And yeah, all of that is normal and beautiful.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's such a good reminder too, because it's like I had that euphoria, but that was kind of like I was like, that was my, what's the right word? My reward for being in that shower and feeling like my baby was going to just rip through my anus. Like, that's what I get, you know? So yeah, it can be all of the things, and it's going to be something different for every person, for every birth. And, so yeah, that was birth with Isaiah, and it was so wonderful.
And how did your postpartum time frame go with him?
Postpartum with Isaiah was rocky. The first month was, well, I'd say the first 2 weeks was rough. I was a shell of myself because we couldn't figure out breastfeeding, and it was devastating to me because, you know, I tell every woman this too. I planned and prepared and did everything I could for birth. I did nothing for breastfeeding because I didn't know. I thought I was going to have that baby. He was going to, you know, find his way to my boob. He was going to latch, and it was going to be a beautiful experience from there on out. I did not realize that there is so much more to breastfeeding. And honestly, with your first, I think it's also too that we're carrying so much extra anxiety because we don't know what we're doing. And so I feel like even watching moms through their second and third and fourth pregnancies, like, it gets easier with everyone because you have a level of ease and peace knowing this too shall pass. This will get better. This is a moment in time. And so I didn't have that perspective with Isaiah because he was my first. So breastfeeding was really hard. It was just, we were not successful, unfortunately. I tried for 3 months and was able to get donor milk for an additional 8 months. So, again, it takes a village. It was the most wonderful thing to get donor milk from another mama, actually, that Anne Marie connected me with. And she kept 2 babies alive and thriving for many, many months, which was just so incredible and gives me shivers to think about. That's just such a sacrifice and such a beautiful thing for her. Not a sacrifice, but such an incredible way to, you know, lend a hand to another mama. And other than that, though, it was beautiful. It was really good. It was just really hard to gather our sea legs with nursing. But he was a good baby. I hate that sentence because all babies are good babies. But, you know, he was very alert. He was always the kid that was like, I just want to be seeing all the things. And I felt good. Physically, I felt good very quick. It was emotionally, I felt really, really, really tough because I was basically grieving an experience that I really thought was going to come so natural.
Yeah.
And looking backward, because I did have a really great nursing experience with Cal, there are a lot of things I could have done to position myself better. And maybe it was my ego that thought, I've watched I've watched hundreds of moms nurse. I've helped hundreds of them get, successful latches and all the things, like, well, fine. But that was ignorance. So to any mom listening, one thing I really, really, really suggest is working with a lactation consultant before you have your baby, because there are a lot of things that they can do to help position you into a good space, and also just to have another person to listen, another person to ask questions to, and to already be established with somebody when the baby does come, so that you're not scrambling trying to figure out, like, who can help me in this situation. Do you know what I mean? So that was a huge difference maker for me in terms of my postpartum with my two boys.
Yeah, that's a really good reminder to everyone about, because it's sort of like the wedding versus the marriage analogy, and I see it so often where you just don't plan necessarily that way, but also it's both things, right? You can also know all the things too, but once you're in it, it's just a different animal to be dealing with, and you have all of the hormonal factors and everything going on. So you are amazing for everything you did for Isaiah.
Thank you. Yeah. And that was something I honestly had to make peace with that. And I think I didn't really fully make peace with myself with that until I did have Cal. I don't know if it was the redemptive component of it for me, or if it was that I just realized how freaking hard it was and that I did everything I could. Yep. Maybe I didn't realize that until I had a second opportunity at it. But I had to forgive myself a little bit, because then I also almost wanted to, I almost wanted to kind of say screw it to nursing Cal, because I felt like I was giving something to him that I wasn't able to give to Isaiah. So I had to also work through those feelings of grief. And I did work really, really hard to do the very best I could for Isaiah. And he's a happy, healthy, thriving, almost 4-year-old. But in the beginning, that was so hard to let go of something that I wanted so desperately,
For sure. Yeah, I can attest to the fact that Isaiah he has a huge personality. He's amazing. I find myself being like, this kid is like 6. He's, like, he's not even 4, but I'm like, he has just this huge like energy, and I love it so much. Oh,
he also has, thank you. I know it's funny because obviously the boys saw each other for that Badger game the other night, and Isaiah was like, Mom, Lincoln's going to be there. And I was like, oh yeah, Lincoln is going to be there. And he goes, is Lincoln 5 or 6?
He'll be 6. He's 5. He'll be 6 in June.
That's what I thought. So Isaiah goes, Mom, Lincoln's 5. And I was like, I think you're right. And he goes, but he's not like a big 5. He's like a little 5. Because he wanted to know, like, I can still, he doesn't want to feel like Lincoln's this, like, huge kid that he can't play with or something. So he's like a little 5. And I'm like a big 3, so he's just trying to basically, make it make sense and justify their friendship. And yeah, it was funny.
Oh.
Yes.
All right. So let's get into your experience with Cal.
Yes.
So when you got pregnant with Cal, are you immediately like, yes, we're doing another home birth? Like, is it an immediately like, don't even let the stick dry and call Anne-Marie, or how does that work?
Absolutely. Because getting on that lady's books is tough, right? So I got the test, and I was like, my very first phone call after I told Adam was like, I'm calling Anne-Marie. And we were very much in agreement of that. We had talked about that prior, of like, yes, it's another home birth for us. So that was an automatic. And really the only difference, I had another really great pregnancy. I did have like a little bit, I didn't have high blood pressure, but my blood pressure seemed to be moving, like trending in a little bit of a higher direction. And so I did like pull back from work a little bit, and my stress levels really helped with that. Anne-Marie was very good at reminding me that, when you're a business owner and you're just kind of like a pedal to the metal type of person, it's really hard to pull back. But she was really good at reminding me like, hey, you might need to just slow down a little. and that helped a whole bunch. So I had a really beautiful pregnancy with Cal. The only big difference I made was I added a lactation consultant to my team because I was very, very adamant that I was going to have a good nursing experience this time. But also, I was like, I also feel like I made a pact with myself that I was like, I'm gonna try like hell to see if we can make this work, and if for some reason it doesn't, at least I tried everything that I could to make it as successful as an experience as it could be. So pregnancy was great. I went over again with Cal. I went the same gestation, 42 and 5. I don't know what my babies have about being on the inside that long. But I did. I had a really comfortable pregnancy, and labor and delivery was so fast and fierce that we basically free birthed and had Adam delivered Cal. Emily was there with us, but
So I'm going to correct you.
Yes.
You delivered Cal.
Good call. Adam caught him. I delivered him, but Adam was like, because Emily was like, I'm not touching that baby. I'm not, obviously. So yes, you are so right. I delivered Cal. And it was funny because we were on a different time clock because this time Anne Marie was like, no, like we had a date that she was like, I really at this point would prefer if you'd go into a hospital setting if you are not, if you don't have this baby by then. And so that was a Sunday. And it was a Friday morning that I had made the decision after doing homeopathics and she swept my membranes. And we went that far because I was like, okay, I want this baby to be born at home in the worst way because and I don't really know where that comes from for me because I don't have hospital trauma. I'm sure I maybe need to, I'm sure that could be a whole nother podcast. I don't really have any trauma like that, but I just had such a wonderful experience with my first that I wanted that again desperately with my second. And so as we got closer to that Sunday date looming in the distance, I felt like there were a few things I was willing to do that maybe would originally be not in my birth plan if it meant that it could get me closer to my end goal of baby at home. So we did make the decision, informed, of course, because I think that is so important to remember that birth needs to be informed. You need informed consent. You need to know risk. You need to know benefit. You need to have those conversations with your provider. Anne Marie walked me through all of the things, and we decided that we would strip my membranes. We had also been trying all the homeopathics. I had been doing all of the things. And so Friday morning came, she stripped my membranes on Thursday night, and I was feeling a little bit of stuff. We decided that I was going to do the castor oil, and I was going to do the slew of castor oil, apricot juice, lemon tea, that delicious thing. And it went down the old hatch at about 8:30 in the morning, and Adam and Isaiah went to do an oil change on my car in the middle of the massive snowstorm Bennett. He was gone, and it was like maybe 10:30, and I was bouncing on my ball. I texted my mom. I'm like, I think Isaiah should maybe come over soon. And Adam walked in the door, and I was like, I was having decent contractions. But with my second, I did not have consistent contractions. I would have like a 2-minute long contraction, and then I'd have like a 20-second contraction, and they'd be right on top of one another, and then they'd be a minute apart. It was very interesting, that whole process, and I'm guessing that was maybe the castor oil just pushing things along in a non-natural way. Because, those are not things that I would typically, I'm so pro, like, let your body do it. But there was just an insatiable urge of mine that I was going to get this baby here before having to go into the hospital. And, I called Emily. She came over. I was laboring on the toilet. And at that point, I literally was, again, just so far away from where, like, I was not on Earth. I was somewhere. But I didn't have that euphoric experience with Cal, and I think it's because he came so fast. So I was on the toilet. Her and my sister ended up going and making up the bed, and I moved into the bed. I was extremely uncomfortable, and I laid on my side, and I finally had some reprieve from the pain, and my water broke. And Emily was like, get her pants off, because when her water breaks, her baby's right behind. And literally it was like 2 minutes later that Cal was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
That's a,
how far away was Anne Marie when he came out?
like 20 minutes, half hour. I
Okay.
don't think that she had left yet. She was in her car because Emily had her on speakerphone. She was like, Anne Marie, there's a head, you know? And Anne Marie's like, okay, how's baby looking? Like, you know, whatever. And then all of a sudden, you know, because as my babies do, the head comes and then the body's quickly behind. So his head was out and then, you know, his body, and she's like, okay, he's here. He's here. And Anne Marie's like, okay, like, what's happening? He's crying. It's like, great, he's crying. Awesome. Anything, you know, is he got good color? Emily's like, yep, he's pink, he's good, everything's good. So it was just so funny because Anne Marie was like, I'll be there in about 20 minutes. And then she was, and everything was good. And it was, I can't tell you the amount of relief I had when that baby latched.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh, Jamie, that was the best experience of my life. It was so good. I have a picture of myself with my arm up in the air, and I was just so, I was superwoman at that point.
Yay. You are. Oh.
We are, right? Like women, we just are. We're badasses. We don't even know the power we have inside of us.
And what was Adam's reaction to catching?
I have to tell this story. It's very short. I think he was just so. Backstory: at 32 weeks, it was the only appointment Adam came with me in prenatal because it's so different. Your first versus second, right? I'm like, I got this, whatever. But Adam came to this one, and Anne Marie, I remember she looked at him and she said, "I just want to go through a couple of things because your baby's due in winter. I'm 40 minutes from you, and your first baby came fast." And she said, second baby, moms, especially when first baby was fast, second baby, they're in denial, and baby comes faster, typically.
Yes.
So she's like, I want to go over some things where if for some reason something happens and I'm not there yet, this is what you need to do in case you need to step in. And she had kind of gone through like, you know, don't pull on it, don't pull on the baby, don't pull on a cord, just, you know, make sure she's in a good spot. You can catch the baby if you need to, or make sure she's on a bed with towels or whatever. And and she kind of went through as far as to say like, well, and if baby's not breathing, you're going to put your mouth around his nose and mouth and suck, and you know, and Adam was like, okay, you know, thinking I don't need that information. So it's so funny that she went through that, and then it ended up happening that Adam catches this baby. But he crushed it. I think he thought, like, and I ask him all the time now, like, what'd you think about that? He's like, I think it's so cool that I caught Cal. Like, what a story to tell him one day. But afterward, you know, I'm nursing him, and our bedroom has double doors and you can see right to the kitchen. And everybody's gone. It's just me and Adam. Isaiah hadn't come and met him yet. And I'm nursing Cal, and I look, and Adam's just over the island like this. And I'm like, everything okay out there? What are you doing? And he goes, just praying to God. That's all he said. You could just tell he finally had a moment to breathe out and realize what had happened, you know? So I think it's a really special thing for him.
Oh,
Yeah.
amazing. And so breastfeeding went better with Cal, and how was your postpartum time frame overall with him?
My postpartum experience with Cal was phenomenal. I think, again, I'll go back to this every time, like second baby over first baby, even if you have a harder baby for some reason, is easier because you know what you're doing. And again, you remember everything's temporary. So I felt really good right off the bat. And this is one thing I would say to women is like, you have to listen to what you need, because with Isaiah, one thing that I think created a really tough postpartum for me was that I was pretty isolated. Anne Marie, and rightfully so, because I'm a host and I'm the person that loves, when people are in my house, I feel like I have to take care of them. So she had really advised against, like, don't have a bunch of people in your house, like, let your baby establish a latch, let your baby, like, bond, which was so great. And looking back, I'm like, I'm happy we did that, but I wish I would have expanded my nucleus quicker, because I didn't feel supported, because I love my people, and I love when my people are around me. I wanted to feel that village community component of things, and I didn't because of just boundaries I had put in place. And again, it's good that I put those boundaries in place for some parts, but for my mental and emotional health, I needed that. So with Cal, I told myself, okay, I'm going to, and Anne-Marie was so supportive of that. She was like, absolutely. I think that was a big difference and change for you. So with Cal, let's do that. So I had my mom over a lot quicker. I had my family over a lot quicker. I just felt so supported and loved on. And so that portion made my postpartum so much easier. But then also latching and nursing, it still was hard fought. And I still was a just enougher my entire like nursing journey. And looking backward, I do wish that I maybe could have, I wish I could have nursed him a little longer. But overall, it went so much better than my first. I felt like I worked a lot with a lactation consultant because I needed like nipple shield stuff and you know, I needed to establish a good latch. But once he got it, it was just such a great thing. Like, just that bond is so unbreakable, and it's just so cool. So my postpartum with Cal was a dream, honestly. And that kid is, God gave me a nice, easygoing one because Isaiah's got his fun, crazy personality. God was like, okay, I'll balance the deck for you a little bit here, Sadie. So Cal's very laid back. It's fun.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
So before we end the podcast, I have to ask you the question.
Yes.
If you could offer one piece of wisdom to transform the fear and trauma in today's birth culture into confidence, healing, and triumph, what would that be?
So this is two-part, and I think that we've honestly talked about it a lot throughout this podcast, but my answer is to, number one, drown out the noise, and number two, build your circle. And what I mean by that is drown out the noise of what everybody else is telling you to do. It's so frequent that we make decisions based on what we believe other people want for us more than what we want for ourselves. And in something like birth, that is the most transformative, vulnerable, expansive experience, I believe, in your entire life. And you shouldn't let what your mom or sister or colleague or coworker or, you know, even husband has to say about that birth experience. It's a decision you can make together, of course, but your voice in that and your desires deserve to be heard and followed through upon. So drown out the noise of what everybody else has to say about it. Even if it's something like an intervention that you don't want done, that other people say you should do anyway, or if it's where you want to birth, or it's the provider you want to birth with, like, you listen to the inner callings of your soul and follow through on that, because every single time you're going to get closer to that experience and what you really ultimately want, and it'll expand you in a way that is just so transformative. And I think that when birth is able to be transformative and expansive instead of traumatic, I mean, you step into a completely different version of yourself. And it's when you do replace fear with confidence that happens. And I think the other thing, part of that, is to build your circle and build it early, because you need the support, you deserve the support, and the more key players and people you have on your team surrounding yourself, like you said, it's avoided, you know, it helps decrease the potential of trauma. And it also helps increase your birth outcomes and your postpartum experience, your perinatal experience altogether. You are going to have a so much better situation and experience all around if you have the right people in the right places. So those are my things.
Amazing. I love it so much. Dr. Sadey, thank you for spending your time with me, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jamie. I've enjoyed this so much.